Hello and welcome back to the Eastman Sport Report, your father-son coach-player podcast. I'm joined again by my co-host, Stephen Eastman.
Hello, everyone. How you doing, Max?
Coming here with a midweek edition of the Eastman Sport Report, recording this at the sharp time of 9 o'clock. Hey-oh.
Yeah, let's see how many times I can mess up my words, because my family makes fun of me with how good I talk. As I'm doing a really good job right now, how good I talk after 9 o'clock. So this will be a fun podcast for everybody to listen to. Eastman Sport Report
This is
special.
the closest we're going to get to drunk Stephen.
Yes, this is late night edition with Stephen. Okay.
So, the recap of the week, besides the play-in, beat Brooklyn by... The math is not math. 30 points.
Yes, 107-77.
Lost to the Thunder. Lost to the Pelicans. Lost to the Suns by 1 point. And then we beat the Portland Trailblazers by 39 points.
So we had two blowouts.
One blowout against us.
Well, was any of them a blowout?
One of them, the Pelicans
wasn't that close, but the Thunder and Suns, like the Thunder. Oh, this was also the week where you could say we had a really good week with the 2-minute report, because we had the Thunder game where it was a 1-point game and SGA should have been called for a travel. Actually, there was two things wrong with that foul. There was one thing before SGA traveled. There was two reasons why that basket should not have counted and still would have been a 1-point game. Kings ball instead of down by 3 with about 30 seconds to go or something like that. And then there was the foul against at least De'Aaron Fox says he got fouled against the Suns. You had the week before where Boston Celtics game, Colby Jones got smacked in the face and they don't call anything. So we ended the season really strong in the 2-minute report because we are the kings of the 2-minute report,
as we say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any specifics you want to go into these games?
I mean, the blowouts were really nice. I mean, but you're playing the Nets and the Trailblazers. You're basically playing. I don't even know what the Trailblazers G League team is, but it felt like you were playing their G League team with Chris Murray. Like if you look at their roster and who was playing, you're like, Chris Murray was the only guy that I would recognize out there. They literally had a guy that they signed 4 minutes before the game. And even the TV announcer's like, this guy is not on our pregame notes. We had no idea who this guy is. We're looking him up during the telecast to see who this guy is. So I don't even remember his name because it's not important because he probably played in the G League. But anyway, from an NBA perspective, he was like, yeah, he got signed for the rest of the season, though, so good for him.
One thing I want to talk about, the Phoenix game, could have been if the Kings actually kept winning like how they were instead of letting Phoenix creep back. It would have been the Isaiah Thomas return game, which would be the first time in, I think, 5 years IT played in Sacramento.
Yeah, he was on the roster, but he didn't play. But
he hasn't played in a game minutes-wise in Golden One Center yet.
But it was great to see that he got signed. Maybe he'll make a playoff thing there. The Thunder game and the Suns game were really, really close. I sure thought they were going to win that Suns game the whole way through, and then... Yeah, we'll get to some of the details on that. So is there any notes that I want to highlight through all these things here? I mean, the Brooklyn game, they were up most of the whole way. They only scored 13 points in the third quarter, and they still won by 30 points.
I mean, it's okay if you score 13 points. Then.
The one thing that you're seeing here is they allowed only 77. Like, that's amazing. I mean... Yeah, Brooklyn didn't have their, some of their better players, but still, either way, you're only giving up 77 points in an NBA game. That's pretty good. So, that's nice, and the Kings win by 30. Let's see, the Thunder game, Kings were leading. They had a 19-point lead in the first half.
Fox scored 33 points on that game.
Yeah, they had 13 threes in the first half. So they were playing really good. So this is like if we were to look far out in the future, which we don't really want to right now, the Kings and the Thunder could like if the Kings went on Friday and beat the Pelicans, they would play the Thunder. So this would be a little bit of recap of that. And this was in OKC. So we could be talking about this matchup again on Friday. And the Kings were playing pretty good. The one thing that you have to say about the Thunder is SGA. He basically takes over the game in the fourth quarter for them. And the whole offense runs through him, and he's their superstar.
There's no reason why he's like favorite for MVP.
There's a reason, and I think he averages over 30 points a game. Like he's one of the best, scoring wise in the league. He's not the best, but I think he's in top 5. Fox is top 7, 8 to 10 range, so he's doing pretty good too. But SGA is really, really good. The one thing that I noticed about the Thunder game, normally Sabonis dominates Chet Holmgren. Now, they've only played like a couple games because it's only been one
4
season.
games?
Yeah.
Well, this is the 4th.
That would be the 4th game. But it seemed like Chet Holmgren was doing better against Sabonis, which, again, if we get to the thing, like could be a problem. Like his length actually started to bother Sabonis.
Something that I saw and that I've been seeing throughout the week, I think from the Clippers game, which we won that game, but I feel like Sabonis isn't playing as good as he can. Like he's playing kind of shy, like how the national medium or other people see Sabonis, like how he was playing the Warriors in the playoffs last year. He was playing kind of scared and timid. And I don't know what that was about. He again, the Thunder game, he lost his double-double streak, ended 61 games.
Because he wouldn't shoot. There was points in the fourth quarter where you're like, you only need 2 points. You need one bucket to get there. And he doesn't shoot. Like he had so many times. That's what you're probably getting to. He's scared.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about, but it was the starting in the Pelicans game. It's you could see something kind of turn in the Pelicans game a little bit
That
from
he
the
got
Thunder
better?
game.
You're saying?
Yeah, a little bit better,
Okay.
but because he broke the his double streak, so you're like, oh man. So
Which is weird that he broke this double-double streak by getting enough rebounds, but didn't have enough points. You're like, anyway.
No, he did. Whatever.
Yeah, he only had 8 points.
And then it started turning. You could see sort of it in the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter happened, and we just couldn't finish. And then the Phoenix game comes around, and Sabonis scores, 25 points. So it's like, Sabonis is actually playing like how he should. So he needs to get his confidence back, and that's good because he played great in the Warriors game, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But Sabonis is getting his confidence back. I don't know why he lost it in the first place.
Well, yeah, it's almost like, and I was going to say, like against the Thunder, he didn't play very good. I mean, Brooklyn, he didn't need to play really good. But a couple of games before, like I was starting to notice, like he's turning the ball over more than he normally does. I don't know if the teams are like learning to pressure him. And he's, not taking care of the ball. And now in the last couple of games, he's done it. But I don't know if it's matchup things or whatever. But especially against the Thunder, and there was a couple other games this week where he was fumbling the ball. And, that's not normal for him. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. He needs to he doesn't have to score 20 points for the Kings to win. But he's got to be the orchestrator of the offense. And he's got to keep track of that ball and not lose it.
Okay. Do you have anything to say about the Portland game or any game in specifics?
Let me see. Was there anything else about the Suns game? The Suns were playing. The Kings were playing really good. They were leading almost the whole way. They had 16 points.
That's
at the end of the third. So they were at a 16-point lead at halftime. Well, there's a coaching moment we'll get to later that I was going to talk about. The Kings were up by 17 in the third. So it was almost like the Kings built the lead in the first half. And then the Suns slowly started to come back, and then they caught up and beat us by 1.
As a diehard Kings fan, I see that a lot. As a Kings, like you saw it in the Knicks game at the end of the season, you saw it in the Thunder game at the end of the season. You probably name a dozen different examples. There are a dozen different examples of us blowing huge leads. That the Kings play so hot at the beginning. And then, for some reason, after halftime, when they've sat down for a while, or they just can't seem to get it back going, I don't get it.
Yeah, the other thing I would say about the Phoenix game is that was the end of the game where we talked about kind of the Kings of the 2-minute report. Yeah. That's the game that afterwards, both Mike Brown and De'Aaron Fox kind of didn't really go off, but they were talking about how we keep losing the 2-minute report. Mike Brown, I don't even know if he got fined. I don't ever hearing about it.
I don't think he did.
I don't think he did, but he was doing a lot of, here's the receipts. He mentioned all the other things that I already mentioned about the 2-minute report.
He finally realized that, oh yeah, I'm the coach of the Sacramento Kings.
And the Sacramento Kings don't get calls. He even said it was in the post-game press conference. He's like, well, maybe the refs look at what's on the front of our jersey. Like that's what Mike Brown is like. It must be what's on the front of our jersey. Like he said something like that. That may not be an official quote, but it was something like that to that effect. So, yeah, he's starting to get fed up. Fox is definitely getting fed up. I think he's getting way more chippy at the refs recently because he is not getting fouls called for him. I mean, if you look at how many free throws he attempts versus other teams, this is the stat that Mike Brown mentioned after the game. So in the 2 games versus the Dallas and the Knicks, which is about a week ago, those are back-to-back games. The opposing team shot 62 free throws in 2 games, which like, okay, that's about 31 free throws a game. It's about normal. The Kings shot a total of 22. And you're like, come on. As I'm hitting my water bottle, if you can see my arms flailing about, like, come on, that's just come on, 62 to 22, like that's just ridiculous for the refs.
I wish. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like being a Warriors fan is easier. Well, it is easier because you have Steph Curry,
and you've won 4 championships.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. So anyway,
talk about the Warriors game. Something positive.
Well, let's see here. Are we ready to skip to it? So, we didn't talk about the Portland game, but they played a G League team, so you're like, whatever.
They won by 39. Good job. You beat Portland, who was eliminated.
So, before we get into the end, wrap up the season.
Hold on.
I wanted to do some more season wrap-up
So,
stuff.
obviously, the Kings beat the Warriors, unless you're living under a rock. My bad. It's spoiled. But with the Warriors, they traded, I forget with what they traded for. I think it was like in a multi-team trade.
Which one?
I forget. I don't know exactly why this is, but the Warriors, they don't have their first-round pick this year. The Trailblazers do. So, with the Kings beating the Warriors, the Trailblazers now have 2 lottery picks this year.
Yep.
Just a little thing to think about. Just a little.
And let's say if the Kings actually end up in the lottery too, because they lose on Friday, the Kings and the Warriors are actually tied. So they have to do a coin flip to see who actually ends up worse. And I think they're tied with somebody in the Eastern Conference. So if they lose in the play-in game, then we might be tied with them too. So there was 3 teams we'd be tied with. But anyway, hopefully we won't get to that point, and the Kings are in the playoffs.
I think it's the Heat.
Okay.
Anyway, now actually going to talk about the Warriors game.
And the Heat did lose tonight, so that is still a possibility. Okay. Anyway,
there's 2 names I want to mention or 3, I guess. There are 2 names I want to mention for the Kings going into this game. Keegan Murray, Keon Ellis.
Is that your players of the game?
Those are my players of the game.
Okay.
If you look at...
From one player to the other.
Yeah. If you look at... Kings Twitter, if you look at NBA Twitter, if you look at anything on the internet right now, they're just saying, man... Who is Keon Ellis? Who is this guy? I think in the broadcast, they literally said, "Who is this guy?" after he drained his 4th 3.
Well, the funny thing is the guys that were on the call last night on TNT, they were better than what we've had in the past. There was a game a couple weeks ago, and those guys had not even seen the Kings play since they played the Warriors last year, so they were horrible. These announcers were better. I give them credit.
I think part of it is because the Kings were winning, so they have to talk about the Kings.
Yeah. So little, Keon Ellis. So if those of you who don't know, Keon Ellis was undrafted by the Kings. He's technically been on the Kings roster for 2 years. They signed him as a 2-way contract, undrafted out of Alabama.
Played in the Stockton Kings.
So he played for the Stockton Kings last year. He got to training camp this year. And Mike Brown said that when they went into training camp, they looked at okay, who's our backup point guard positions? It's Davion Mitchell, Keon Ellis, or Colby Jones. They technically brought in Ford, but he had a 2-way contract as well as Keon Ellis. And so they're looking at all these options, and they're like, okay, Davion's probably has the lead on all this type of stuff. But Davion almost played himself out of the rotation in the playoffs last year. He was so good defensively, but he could not shoot his way out of a barn.
I just want to say one thing.
So,
before, not to get completely sidetracked, Davion Mitchell is so confident now. He is doing everything he can.
He's worked himself back in the rotation.
He's worked himself back into the rotation, and he's playing so well, especially against what he did earlier in the season. I'm so happy and proud of him.
So
as a fan. He's doing so well. Anyway, what you were saying.
So back to the Keon Ellis story. So Keon Ellis came into the season, and the Kings were like, hey, he's actually doing pretty good. The interesting thing, when the Kings first signed him, I saw this today on Twitter. I'll still call it Twitter.
It's Twitter. It's not X. It doesn't matter.
So I was walking on there and showed a video clip and like, hey, don't forget who Keon Ellis was. In his first summer league, the Kings won the summer league championship that year when he was a rookie. Mm-hmm. And who was the one in overtime that drained a three? When the game was tied at the end of a game in overtime, who scored the winning bucket? Keon Ellis dribbled himself, got himself open, buried a three.
He's always had a clutch gene, apparently.
Yeah. So anyway, coming to this season, he did not play much at all. Like in all of November, he played a whole 1 minute. So in October and November, played a whole 1 minute against Utah. He came in at the beginning of December and played 1 minute against Houston, which was a blowout. The next game, we had a blowout against Houston, which I don't even want to talk about those games, except that Keon Ellis came in and played 14 minutes, and he scored 15 points. And that was the moment when he was found by Mike Brown and says, I can trust you on the court, and I'm going to give you a chance. And he played 21 minutes the next night, and he got 4 rebounds, 3 steals. He was playing good. And so he played himself to start playing the rotation. The next game he played against Oklahoma City, he played 31 minutes. He played against Cleveland, and then he fell out of favor and didn't play for a few games. So he was in and out of the lineup in December. He came back in the lineup and started playing a little more consistently, coming off the bench in January. I don't know if he played all the games, but it looks like, in the game log, looks like he's playing all of them. But then in like February, he's only getting like 4 minutes and 9 minutes and then 2 minutes. So he's not getting a whole lot. And then in March, he starts to work himself back into the rotation. And like he had this point where it was in March where he was, where were we at? We're like 6-0 when Keon Ellis starts. Mm-hmm. And everybody was like, maybe we need to start Keon Ellis over Kevin Huerter.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, Kevin Huerter hurts himself. And you're like, okay, Keon Ellis has a chance to start.
And then he goes out and wins another game, and then we lose. And then Kings happen.
Yeah, but the idea is, the other interesting thing is you look at Keon Ellis' stats. Like at the beginning of the season, his 3-point percentage. So in January, he played a decent amount. He shot 39% in January when he's playing like random percentage. Now in December, he shot like 27%. But he's playing random, and so that he's getting more playing time. Like in February, he shot 16% from 3, so that's probably
like we said, and I think it was episode 2. We're seeing Keon grow up before our eyes, and he's becoming like is it too early to say the fifth King star? Because there's
too early. Yeah,
it's too early. But because we have Fox, Sabonis, Keegan, and Monk.
But let me finish my story. Almost done here.
Yeah.
So in March, he was, again, getting consistent minutes. That's when he started to start. So he's playing consistently. He shot 44% in March from 3.
That's pretty good. And
in April, he shot 47%. Like that's
like prime Steph Curry numbers.
Yeah, like he is getting quality. His volumes are increasing of shots. His percentage is going up. So not only is he growing up in front of our eyes, like even Mike Brown is like, man, he's getting good, and his teammates are recognizing him. And then he shows out on national television, like some of the steals he had against Steph Curry. Like this is Steph Curry, and he just picks his pocket. Like you're like, you go, dude.
Feed the hot hand.
And the funny thing was, is you watch that. One of the great things is if you were to look into a matchup thing going into it, like you play the Warriors, who's the guy you got to really worry about?
Steph Curry.
Okay. Well, last year in the playoffs, all you really had to guard Steph Curry was Davion Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox. Mm-hmm. And Davion Mitchell played himself out of the rotation because he couldn't hit a open bucket, or he wouldn't even shoot the open shot because he was so afraid he would miss. He stopped shooting. So he had to sit down the last couple of games. So then you're playing Fox. Your best player has to play their best player. He's getting tired. And, there you go. You still played really good.
I think
But this year, you can throw Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray. Mm-hmm. Davion Mitchell is playing good offensively, so you can throw him. And you still have Fox. You got 4 players that you can rotate around on Steph Curry. So they started the game with Keegan Murray. Well, the Warriors do what a lot of NBA players do. They go to a whole bunch of screens. So you're getting screens and you're getting switches because you have to switch.
And Steph Curry wasn't hitting his shots at first. So it was like, okay, Keegan, you go play someone else.
Well, no, Keegan Murray was playing him, but you get these switches. Well, who was getting the switch? They were getting switched on to Keon Ellis. So you're going from Keegan Murray to Keon Ellis. You're like, from a Kings perspective, you're like, that's awesome. Please do that switch.
That's a win-win.
That's a win-win for us. We'll take defender, either one of them defending him. And that's where one of the steals came that I'm talking about was an awesome thing. Like Keegan Murray was guarding him. They got a screen, switched on from Keon Ellis, switched onto him, and then Keon picks Curry's pocket like that and goes down and gets a layup. Well, technically he got fouled and made his free throws. But, you know, oh man, he's still growing up.
Did we talk about Keegan Murray for a little bit? Mr. What was it, 32 points?
Go for it. I'll let you start on that one. I'll talk a little bit.
Okay. This I was gonna save this for the player coach section that we're gonna have later, but let's say it now. Last year, how the Warriors beat the Kings was through their defense and how they schemed against Sabonis. What they did is they had someone, Looney, sitting at the top of the key, watching Sabonis, making sure that he wasn't able to pass it to anyone.
And he was really sagged below the free throw line.
Yeah. And that shut down Kings' offense because we didn't know what to do against that. Because how we played offense is pass, pass, pass. And the only really way to counter that is with a screen to someone else and then they catch and shoot, which was Kevin Huerter last season. And Kevin Huerter is great, but he doesn't have that kind of clutch gene that you need in the playoffs.
At least he didn't last year.
Well, not last year. And we couldn't do against what we should have against them. Mm-hmm. But this year, we started doing that against the Warriors and then getting wide open shots for Keegan Murray, and he starts hitting them. So then we keep doing it, and then Keegan Murray keeps getting open shots, and he keeps hitting them, and he keeps going and going. So we go, okay, now we actually have to play defense against them. So you have to move up, but Keegan's already in a rhythm. So now he's just draining threes right in front of Draymond Green's face. And I saw him use colorful language right after Keegan shot in his face, and Keegan's just stone cold.
Yeah, if you watch through the progression, like one time, Draymond Green is guarding Sabonis, comes out and they actually double team Keegan.
He still makes it.
Well, no, he jumps up and then he passes it to Sabonis. Sabonis drives the lane, somebody guards him, and then he kicks it to Keon Ellis, who gets a corner three. Because
you had someone on fire, so that opened up the entire offense. Because the Kings offense runs through Sabonis. He's the guy who touches the ball in every possession, the guy who gets all the assists for his double-doubles because he's such a good passer. And they guarded him so well last year in the playoffs that we couldn't do anything. But now we had someone to make the shots, and that was Keegan Murray. And so that opened up everything else. Keegan Murray had 8 3-pointers. He had 10 field goals. He only made 2 non-3-pointers and 4 free throws, which is really good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had 32 points on, was it 20 shots? Mm-hmm. And then De'Aaron Fox said, was it 20-something points?
24 points
on 25 shots?
On 25 shots.
I remember that right, yeah. Anything else you want to say on Keegan? So Keegan
Murray. I don't know.
Okay, anyway.
I think it's fun when the announcers acknowledge that.
It was a funny part of the moment. Uh-huh. The play-by-play guy stopped so that the arena could be heard. Uh-huh. And then the color commentator talked over it. Mm-hmm. You could totally tell the other guy wanted to go, let the I think he said something about that effect. And he stopped talking, and it was silent for about 2 or 3 seconds. And then the color guy copied in and he talked over it. Anyway.
There's one last player I want to talk about. It's not a Kings player. It's Klay Thompson. If you looked at our Twitter account, I had a funny post about him. There are some times when Klay Thompson is losing, and he just slashes 4 fingers to the opposing player's team's bench to say, I have 4 rings. But you also missed 10 shots, and you shot 10 shots, you didn't make a single one of them, Klay.
Now, this is the same Clay who scored 37 points in one quarter against the Kings. So I'm glad the other side came around where he scored 0 in a whole game. Mm-hmm. And it's not like he didn't play. He played, was it 32 minutes?
He played 32 minutes. There's one thing I want to say. NBA Twitter was making so many jokes about Klay Thompson shooting bricks that the AI summarized news section on Twitter thought he was assaulting people in Sacramento by chucking bricks at their house.
And they said they was going to investigate if the story was actually true.
Because AI is like, oh, Klay Thompson's shooting bricks at people's house. I have to say something about this. No, he just sucks.
Throwing bricks. That's so funny. Okay, so my quick coaching moment on this game was looking at the rotations. So in a normal 7-game series, these things play out a lot slower. But in a one and done NCAA tournament type of play-in tournament, one and done game, it was very interesting to see this. And so technically the Warriors and the Kings have a lot of new players since they last played last year. Mm-hmm. So the Warriors start Trayce Jackson-Davis, who's a rookie.
The Kings have Keon Ellis.
And so from the Warriors' perspective, they straight Trayce Jackson-Davis. And Kevon Looney, who's kind of a Sabonis stopper, he doesn't play at all hardly anymore. So in this run where the Warriors have been playing really good, they've been playing Trayce Jackson-Davis.
Huh.
Well, then Sabonis goes out and dominates him in the first quarter.
And they go, well, we need Kevon Looney.
So they put Kevon Looney in. Well, then you bring Kevon Looney in and you mess up your offense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things you're like, they tried to counter it and they couldn't.
One thing I want to say, Trayce Jackson Jr. had 2 points. Kevon Looney also had 2 points.
Yeah. How many rebounds did
Wait, Trayce Jackson Jr. only played 11 minutes.
Yeah, he played in the...
He had one rebound. He had...
I don't know if he played in the second half at all.
He had no stats besides one rebound, and he made one shot.
Yeah, he was not very good. And that's funny how it's he's been very, very important for the Warriors' late season push to even get in the playoffs. And Sabonis pushed him off the court, basically. So,
one more thing, or I guess one or two more things I want to talk about.
Yes.
Plus minus wise, every single starter for the Warriors had a above 10 negative plus minus.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson had a negative 12 for his 32 minutes. The highest on the lowest plus minus on the Warriors was Andrew Wiggins, who had a negative 25. And otherwise, it goes Draymond Green, negative 22. Trey Jackson Jr., negative 10. And Steph Curry, negative 21. He also had 22 points. So if you take away his 22 points that he had, it's about a negative 43 for Steph Curry if he decided to not make his shots, which he wasn't doing in the first half.
So how did the Kings plus minus look?
The Kings plus minus. Let's just go down the list. Domantas Sabonis, plus 25. Harrison Barnes, plus 29. Keegan Murray, plus 20. De'Aaron Fox, plus 20. Keon Ellis, plus 27. Every single one of the Kings starters had over 15 points, or 15 or over.
Yeah. Really good. The starters played major minutes, and they dominated. I mean, it's just they played one of their better games, if not their best game of the season, at a time when they really needed it. So
I think
good job, Kings.
I think for importance and strength of opponents, this is their best game of the season because they've dominated teams like the Lakers and the Bucks, but those could have been substituted for easier games.
Yeah.
But we're the Kings, so.
Okay. So anything else to wrap up this game, and we'll come back with our kind of fun segment to wrap up this episode of the Eastern Sport Report. Anything else you want to add to this segment, Max? Except light the beam.
Light the beam.
Light the beam.
Light the beam.
Okay, we'll be right back with Eastern Sport Report.
Hello and welcome back to the Eastman Sport Report. We're looking back at predictions and making predictions for the rest of the season. So if you look back at our predictions from, I think it is
Episode 1?
episode 1 or episode 2,
Yeah.
we said our predictions for the rest of the season. I said that the Kings are going to stay in the 7th seed, or 8th seed actually. That didn't come true, but I said they're going to finish with 45 wins. They finished with 46. So
Close.
that was close. I was one off. And you said they were going to finish with 49.
Yep. And
That-
I said they were going to get the 7th seed.
Though...
So
Yeah.
neither one of us were exactly right. I was much more optimistic. So I'm more optimistic than Max, you know.
I was closer, so I am a realist.
Okay. So that was some predictions we got wrong. But, okay. From one aspect, if you look at that, we got 46 wins. That's 2 games less than last year. And we dropped from the 3rd seed to the 9th seed. That's some indication. And then the Warriors actually had 2 games better in the win-loss record than than last year. And they went from the 6th seed to the 9th seed. So they got better record-wise and went worse in the standings. It just shows you how hard the West is this year.
In the West, there are, if I can count correctly, 5 teams over 50 or over wins. And if you look in the Eastern Conference, there are 2.
Yeah.
Granted, one of them is the Boston Celtics, who have 64, but, they're not in this conversation right now.
Well, and the other fun thing about the East versus the West is the difference between 1st seed and 2nd seed is New York ended up 2nd seed in the East, and they were 14 games behind Boston. And the Warriors in the 10th seed in the West were 11 games. So the difference between 1st to the 10th in the West is less than 1st to 2nd in the East.
Hold on. I'm looking at the stats. So the Detroit Pistons ended with 14 wins on the season, worst in the league. And they're in the same conference as the Boston Celtics, who finished with 64, best in the league. The games behind of Pistons is 50.
Well, you also shared me another fun fact about the Detroit Pistons.
The Detroit Lions had the same amount of wins as the Pistons.
Hey, go Detroit sports teams.
At least they're consistent.
Yeah, they can only get 14 wins.
Anyway.
So when you see how many wins the Lions will get next year, can the Detroit Pistons beat that? That's the over and under. Is there any other predictions we need to cover?
Let's look at play-in wise. So wrapping up a few, I'm going to say an hour ago, the Chicago Bulls beat the Atlanta Hawks. Colby Jones dropped a 42-point bomb on them.
Okay, so the Hawks are going fishing.
And then the Philadelphia 76ers beat the Miami Heat. So let's start with this. Who do you think is going to win, the Bulls or the Heat?
Can I ask, do you want the short answer or the long answer?
Let's go with the long answer for the fun
Okay,
of it.
so the interesting thing is that Jimmy Butler left that game, and he thinks he has an MCL sprain. At the end of the game, he was not playing very good, and he left. Very similar to Zion. When we get to the Western Conference, we'll talk about the Pelicans and the Kings, and he's already out. So if Jimmy Butler is out, that's a very big difference. And can the Bulls beat the Heat without Jimmy Butler or with Jimmy Butler? I'd say with Jimmy Butler, the Heat are going to win.
Currently, Miami is favored 2.5 points over Chicago. I personally,
Okay, you predict first. I'm still thinking.
I personally think that Miami is the better overall team than
Yes.
Chicago. So I think that Jimmy Butler is gonna make the game not as close for the Miami Heat, but with the Miami Heat, without Jimmy Butler, I think they're going to have a much closer game with Chicago. I do still think that the Heat are going to pull it out at the end. I would love to see the Bulls beat the Heat because I do have some friends who are Bulls fans because their family are just really big fans of Michael Jordan, which I get. He's pretty good. So I would like to see the Bulls win, but I think the Heat are going to win with or without Jimmy Butler.
So you say the Heat are going to win?
Yes.
Okay, just for the fun of it, I say the Bulls are going to win.
Without Jimmy Butler?
Because Jimmy Butler's not going to play.
Okay.
I think Jimmy Butler's not going to play, and so I see that the Chicago Bulls are going to win.
Okay.
So
I just want to bite the bullet on this next one.
Okay.
For the Kings and the Pelicans. Now, coming out earlier today, it says that Zion Williamson will not play on Friday against the Kings. But as a fan of the team that's lost to the Pelicans
5 times.
5 times in a single season, which has never happened before because the in-season tournament decided to have us break a record. Yay!
It used to be back in the 80s, you'd play teams more than 4 because there was less teams.
We're still the first.
No, there was teams that went 0-6 back in the 80s. So it's been a few years. But anyway, go ahead.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think
the
Kings are going to win.
Ooh.
It might be like a Carmichael Dave thing where I say where I don't want to happen and then it does happen, but I don't know how we're going to beat the Pelicans because I haven't seen a way that we can yet. Because I forget which game it was, but I know we have played one game against the Pelicans and we still lost by like 20 points. So I don't want... I pray that this doesn't happen, but my prediction is that the New Orleans Pelicans will get the 8th seed and play the Thunder in the first round.
Okay.
Do you have any...
You know, the funny thing is that I'm actually thinking the exact same thing.
Oh, wow.
Because, I mean, it's the Kings are 0-5 against Pelicans. This is like, even without Zion, I mean, I'm rooting for the Kings, and I sure want us to light the beam, and I think we have a good chance against Oklahoma City. But you're like, we match up horrible against the Pelicans, even without Zion. Like,
and I don't get why.
Well, they're long and athletic, and they're exact opposite of what we are. Like, they are very long and athletic players, and Valanciunas gives Sabonis fits. Like, see, we don't have Valanciunas as a bad matchup for Sabonis. He's like one of the few in the league that Sabonis can't outmuscle. Okay, now if Brandon Ingram can play, like even with Keegan Murray, he's a hard cover. CJ McCollum is a hard, even with Keon Ellis and all.
CJ McCollum, I think, hasn't scored under 20 points against the Kings this season.
Yeah, like he's really good against the Kings, and then they have lots of 3-point shooters. They have. If you look at like the guys that shoot really good on the Pelicans, it's like almost our whole roster, and they're all long and athletic. So, even though I really want the Kings to go, but you're like, I'm looking right now at the ESPN matchup predictor, and it says Pelicans 62% chance of winning. You're like,
yeah.
The Kings haven't even made it close this year, and I don't think Zion played in all the games. But you're like, I sure hope I'm wrong. But I think both of us are saying the Pelicans are probably going to win.
Okay.
That's the bad news of the thing. So there's our predictions.
Let's say high for the weeks.
Okay, let's end on something good.
My high for the week is the Pelicans game. One thing in the Pelicans game, they were having a, I think, end of quarter interview with Willie Green and talking about it. And then he's saying, yeah, we have to pay attention to De'Aaron Fox. And then on the little sidebar, De'Aaron Fox immediately goes and swishes a 3. I did care what happened the rest of the game. I didn't care what happened to the rest of the game. That was amazing.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Amazing. The ball was in the air when he's saying, De'Aaron Fox is like a factor. We have to guard him. And then it swishes when he finished his sentence.
I'm gonna make my high for the week is the play-in game. We kicked the Warriors out of the playoffs.
One more thing I want to say about the play-in game.
Yes,
I know one of these didn't count, but JaVale McGee was having fun in the last 2 minutes that he was in there. He went up and dunked on someone. He climbed a ladder jumping. It was a goaltend, but it was amazing how high he jumped.
Yeah. So my half for the day was that Kings win over the Warriors, and just the fact that we got to knock the Warriors out, and everybody nationally is saying, did the Kings, or end the Warriors dynasty? Will Klay Thompson be back? Chris Paul technically has an out where his money next year is not guaranteed. Lacob's like, if we're a 10 seed and we're paying $100 million in luxury tax, that's not a good. So. Who knows what the Warriors are going to look like next year? None of us know. I don't even think the Warriors brass knows. I don't think. is it Dunleavy? I think is in charge over there now. I don't know. Because Bob Myers left. Bob Myers left because he knew this team wasn't going to win. So
The Warriors.
The Warriors aren't going to win. So there we are. Here's our Wednesday night. Anything else you want to add here before we wrap up, Max?
No, I think we should just wrap up.
Okay.
So, Kings beating the Warriors. Light the beam.
Light the beam. We do have one. So next podcast should be coming out this weekend. So we'll be coming. So the Kings play Friday night. This is Wednesday.
Friday night.
Come Friday, we'll
new
record
episode should be on Saturday. Whenever that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
There should be some games already ended by the time we record, so we might talk about those. Information might be a little dated, but thank you for listening to the Eastman Sport Report. We'll be back in a few days talking about Kings basketball, maybe even a little bit of the NFL draft.
Well, NFL draft is a week away.
Well, you can't be...
Sorry, I messed up your...
I'm sorry. I was...
Try it again.
I don't know. The moment's gone.
Okay. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode number 5 of the Eastman Sport Report.
See you guys next time.